Welcome to the Innovative Entrepreneur Podcast, where every week we interview rising entrepreneurs. This week we have a return guest. Please welcome Benazir Daruwalla. She's the founder and principal partner of CyberMinds Consulting. So last time we left off with your solution. So what is your solution? And just as a reminder to our audience, this podcast is tied to episode 3. So if you haven't listened to that, please do so.
Hey, Glenn. I'm going to be a little discreet and selective on how much I share during this podcast due to the sensitivity around our IP. Nevertheless, I will try my best to explain enough. We left off with talking about our Fabric, Business Threat Risk Analyzer. It has 2 components, our framework and our methodology, which is our vehicle to operationalize our framework. It was primarily developed to facilitate a stronger dialogue between the business, technology, and the cyber teams and minimize the blind spots and challenges we discussed in the episode 3 of this series. The intent is to provide enterprises with good enough level of visibility to make informed investment decisions and risk-reducing controls for vital assets. Our ultimate goal is for them to be able to analyze and simulate the threats, risks, and controls across the entire business stack as opposed to technology infrastructure alone.
So let me play devil's advocate here. Yet another framework?
No, not just another framework, Glenn. The Fabric brings a unique, holistic, and a structured approach by correlating business taxonomy, threats, risks, and controls into a measurable, traceable, and a predictive outcome. There are a lot of great frameworks out there that are detailed and prescriptive on what organizations need to do. We give equal weighting to what and how to ensure the outcomes are actionable by weaving in the business context. As we mentioned and discussed in the last episode, business context is not merely about how you categorize systems or data. It is about how users within an enterprise or otherwise interact with the applications and the underlying infrastructure to generate value along the way. Let's walk through what I said with an example. The concept of business risks and risk appetite are essential to prioritization and implementation of any controls. Both risks and risk appetites are essential aspects of our Fabric. We don't arbitrarily differentiate cyber risk from other operational or business risks. Now, there are plenty of risk management frameworks out there that speak to these as well. For example, NIST risk management framework is quite popular that most enterprises have standardized on to some degree. And then there are risk models like the ones promoted by FAIR Institute that are gaining popularity recently. These frameworks, while exhaustive and detailed, require horsepower and discipline to demonstrate visible value. Our Fabric builds on the best practices and standards with common sense techniques to demonstrate immediate results by focusing the effort on the critical few. Why boil the ocean if you can do more with less, I say?
I know I recently read a post about security assessments and maturity models, which was interesting. Not sure where I read it. It might have been your company page or a McKinsey report.
Correct. Security assessments and maturity-based cybersecurity models provide a point-in-time evaluation of how well an organization is doing in specific areas within cybersecurity, and in some cases provides a comparative analysis against available industry benchmarks. However, they do not have business context, and their do everything and build everything approach can often lead to inefficient spending, too many effort-intensive projects, and yet not guarantee risk reduction where it matters. Organizations need to take their security assessments to the next level of pragmatism, and they can do so by using something like what we provide, our risk-focused, data-driven framework that can help organizations prioritize and action their security assessments more effectively.
So about your framework, or should I say your Fabric?
Our Fabric comprises of our framework and a methodology. There are 3 predefined accelerators of a framework. Number 1 is the business taxonomy. Think about this as a business glossary with predefined metadata. Number 2 is CyberMinds Consulting's threat catalog. The threat catalog is an inventory of real-world and operational threat vectors. This is a critical component that is necessary for our breach and attack analysis and simulation exercise. I will leave it at that. Third is CyberMinds Consulting's Controls Catalog. This is a rationalized inventory of controls that are relevant within an organization. We have taken the industry standards and frameworks around controls, removed all the ambiguity and guesswork, and have rationalized the controls inventory into a single repository. The framework is delivered by a methodology. The methodology operationalizes and contextualizes the framework. The activities vary for each client and requires inputs that are specific to an organization. Within the methodology, we document the business enterprise architecture that shows how the business processes link to the software and data assets and the ultimate infrastructure that underlies those assets. We conduct a business risk and internal control analysis. We produce what we call as a controls execution plan that identifies a prioritized and an executable list of process or operational controls, tech controls, and cyber controls that organizations need to implement to show quick benefits in a shorter time frame. So as you can tell, majority of our activities rely on predefined templates and catalogs customized by user inputs. And we use existing corporate data wherever applicable in a very pragmatic way. For example, you may have a CMDB or an asset table or asset master that encapsulates all your assets within a single repository. So we use what you have and we apply business context and make it more actionable and consumable. Focus is not to be perfect, but good enough.
Very cool. Are you planning to automate this framework?
Yes, absolutely. The goal is to automate the entire exercise, pending organizational context, of course, using analytical engines. The first phase of automation will be for internal use for our own service delivery. The second phase aims to externalize it. We want to offer a solution as a service specifically for organizations who wish to take on the end-to-end analysis, simulation, and the execution of the fabric.
That's great information. So any parting thoughts?
Sure, Glenn. According to 2021 Global Digital Trust Insights survey, more than half of the business and tech and security executives lack confidence in their cyber budget processes and that cyber spending is aligned to the most significant risks. CyberMinds Consulting's Business Threat Risk Analyzer fabric can supercharge the accuracy and confidence in cyber investments by realigning an organization's security controls backlog with 70% risk reduction at the same or lesser cost. In other words, using a framework like ours, every dollar spent on cyber can avoid 70 cents in inherent risk. Of course, I'm making the statements under the assumption that the risk is quantifiable, which can very well be done within the methodology. At a fraction of the price charged by large consulting firms, CyberMinds Consulting brings lean, high-touch, fixed-price, 13-week engagement model that can help organizations focus on securing the most important aspects of their business. Unlike our peers, not only will we share with you what you need to do, we will also provide full insights into how to execute it successfully. So summarizing from what we discussed in our prior episodes and in this episode, CyberMinds Consulting will validate what organizations have and make it better. We facilitate a shared corporate dialogue between the business, cyber, and the technical teams for informed and justifiable investment decision-making. And finally, we help create a documented baseline with traceable and measurable linkage between technology implementations and business value.
Well, thanks again, Benazir. That was great information about your framework and your fabric.
Thanks, Glenn, for having me as always. Appreciate your time.